that's what this is all about, right? Like this is challenging for the hard things because the human dynamic and human connection is fucking hard. And when we accept that it's difficult and that not everybody is this bucket that we've put them in, we can navigate this with bold decision making.
Yeah.
So let's flip it. In a world that often pulls us apart, More in Common brings us back to what matters. Hosted by Gerren Taylor and Keith Richardson, this isn't your average podcast. It's a challenge to think deeper, question louder, and grow further. At More in Common, we work with NFL teams, tech companies, and professionals across industries to improve communication and foster compassion. And with a focus on emotional intelligence, we aim to bring a wealth of experience to help you navigate the complexities of human connection. We've never been more connected and yet more isolated. We want to explore the roots of that tension and offer a way back to what we all need: real human connection. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back,
he said inquisitively.
I know. Sometimes now I'm worried every time. I'm just kidding. Is Keith going to try to jump in on it? No.
Was that a welcome? Are you going to say it back?
Yeah.
Or do I get to finish it? Okay, here we are.
What's the dance today with you, Richardson? How are you, man? I know we were just talking because obviously we haven't moved too far. We like doing these episodes like this where we just have a longer conversation and break it up because we respect your time, audience. We want you to be able to listen to an episode while you're on the treadmill, while you're on the commute, and then come back to another one and not feel like, oh, cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Or talk for 3.5 hours about absolutely nothing and how much ketamine people do and stuff like that.
And try and hope that you process any of it in any meaningful way. But like, let's jump right into it because you finished last week on a really interesting point. So we finished on this nature of bringing whole self, right, and what that means and all that. But before we get there, because I really think it's important that we address that, you asked me a lot last week, how has code switching affected me? I'm curious, like, from your personal perspective, how has it affected you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned a little bit about, just being a thing in the African American community, the Obama meme that we opened the show with last week about how culturally body language, speak, and all those things change depending on what groups you're with. And I think it was particularly profound for me in some ways because I did speech and debate through like middle school and high school and college. And so you always would get the, oh, but you speak so well, from generally well-meaning white people. Mm-hmm. And then also you'd get your friends who were like, "Yo, why you talk like a white boy now?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was like, it's a lot of that. And then to add to that, then, cuando hablo en español es completamente diferente. Mi personalidad es diferente también. So like, you are 3 or 4 different people sometimes. And I think that's who I am now. And it's what you were saying about, it really comes down to your acceptance of self and realizing that I can't really control what weight you're bringing into this conversation, what has happened to you, what your conceived notions are. But what I can do is try to, in some ways, meet you where you're at. And that's how I feel about code switching, right? Like, my responsibility as a communicator is not just to say what I want to say, it's to say it in a way that the person who's to receive the message can understand it. And to me, that's what code switching is. It's like switching to Spanish, right? Like, if you don't understand what I'm saying, maybe I'll say it in the language that you grew up in so that you can get the message better. And I think that by taking it that way, instead of saying, oh, they're trying to make me conform, or, you know what I mean? It's by looking at it as kind of like a superpower, as a ninja star that I can just wah, 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 as opposed to like them society at large, or the dominant culture trying to put me in a box. I think it made me more to have a more positive outlook on it. And it comes down to all kinds of things. I mean, I think in the 90s too, music was big, right? Like now you see so much, like genre doesn't really matter. Everybody makes everything. But I used to listen to Sting, as a 13-year-old, a 14-year-old, and people are like, what is going on with you? Like, are you all right?
Who
Because
are
it just
you
would seem
and
like
what do you do?
so yeah, so out of place for
Yeah.
them. But it allows us, I think, again, this is the benefit and power of blending of cultures, and ideas and thoughts, is that we get to see all of our humanity in each other. So that's why I try to look at the ability to code switch as a net positive as opposed to a net negative, as far as
Mm.
identity and culture, because you are all of those things. You know what I mean? That I am all of these things at the same time. My experiences are who I am, and my values and beliefs, and my way of expressing myself in whichever situation that may be is part of the sum total of me.
It's I really like that perspective, right? Because I do think so much of the discomfort associated with it, armchair psychology here for a second, does come down to a lack of self acceptance, right? Like, or it comes from like this really emerging cultural thing of accept me for who I am, and I won't adapt or adjust to you in any way. You are the problem, not me, right? And I think that is the whiplash of it all, right? Like that whiplash of, because that's not helpful. Look, I'm now in the assessment business, we'll call it, even though Echo is in the business, or LQ is in the business of listening intelligence, and the assessment is a delivery mechanism for self-awareness. But I work with people now who are big into the assessment business, and they will often define themselves and say, this is my defined quality, and they are asking you to meet them where they are. They are saying, this is who I am. You be damned. You meet me here. Right. And I'm running into more and more of these conversations. And that is not the answer,
Mm.
right, to the navigation of cultural expectations and dynamics. Right. The answer is, thank you for telling me who you are, but you also need to understand who I am, and we need to work with each other, right? That concept of meeting people where they are that we've
Yeah.
talked about. And code switching is just a reflection of all of that. But the downside in that tension is the expectation that you, I was just thinking about this as you were talking, total random thought. If I think about a country white boy who grew up on a farm, super intelligent and likes tech, but looks like the country white boy who grew up on a farm, wrangling pigs, chopping wood, doing all of that. A different language is spoken, right? Different communication expectations and all of that, but they're really good at coding, and they want to enter into the tech space, right? That persona doesn't fit in the tech space. And so they will have to have a significant code switch, an
Right.
identity shift in order to go fit and shift over here. And they might not be accepted because their talent isn't what's being evaluated. It's the way they present. Now, they have some default characteristics that allow for assimilation to occur more easily than, say, you or a Black woman, who tend to be even more rejected um, by mainstream economic engines. And this is just a fact of statistics. And if you want to challenge it, please go look up the data around how subjugated Black women are globally by every society
Yeah. There's actually
And
Pew
so
research that says that 60% of Black professionals feel this way.
feel the way of the avatar of the country white man that I'm saying, or
Well, like you're saying, like the pressure on Black women to adjust themselves, like it's a
yes,
very large percentage of Black professionals that feel that way.
without a doubt, right? So it's not just a made up thing. And I think the nature of this conversation has been really important to understand. Look, we all do it. It's all a thing. Some of us just have to, some of us have to do it more because of the lack of acceptance that comes along with the nature of difference. There's such a contrast versus oh, okay, you know, we're okay. I can work through a few of these, but I can't work through all of them. And like
Right.
that'll speak to what we do about it. But you mentioned something at the end of, so this I think brings up a really important point about bringing whole self to work, right? And then going back into that conversation of whiplash. I think that the nature of bringing whole self to work is the antithesis of it's counterintuitive to our human experience. I could be a complete asshole. I could swear all the time. I could steal people's lunches in the lunchroom. I could um, do any number of behaviors that are true to who I am. And I'm
Right.
going to show up and you need to accept me for who I am. And it's like, yeah, but in this space, in this workspace, that's not what we want here. Right? You can still be you. This goes back to your superpower, like that element of positive reflection of it. I just need you to temper certain things down because you have real talent over here,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to bring everything about yourself into the workspace. You're just not. You don't bring everything about yourself to your friends that you've been friends with for a year like you
Right.
do with your spouse or your partner, right? People see different parts of you. Certain people see all of you. Certain people see most of you. Most people see some of you. And as long as it's still you, you get to dictate what some is,
Mm-hmm.
not them. Right? I see you thinking.
Well, no, it's part of the complexities of this one, and you're right. Like I don't think anybody ever brings their whole self to work. Hope to God, because some of y'all people are into stuff I don't want to know about. No, but and there, there is, I don't know. I think that part of how I perceive it when I make that is I do look at this from the lens of marginalized groups a lot. I do look at it from how, for instance, how brave I think a trans person has to be out in
Yeah.
society right now.
Yeah.
And how I don't necessarily feel that people should have to hide it, and I guess when I'm saying true self or whole self, I don't mean necessarily all of those things, but I do mean the parts that you should
The
feel like you should
core
be
of
able to.
who you are.
Right,
Correct.
right.
Yes.
To be able to be
Yes.
honest, to show up for yourself
Yes.
honestly in a place, and exist honestly in the world. And I think that's what you're seeing so much, that that pendulum swing, is that so many people feel so compressed upon and pounded upon and suppressed for so long that now they're saying, you know what? This is it. This is me. You're just going to have to deal with it no matter what. And you're right. I don't think that long term that's actually a solution as well, because we do have to live in a society together, or work together and try to create productive outcomes in our workplace and in our households. And you can't be stealing people's lunches. You can't be negative to the society or to the group that you're in, or so rigid about who you are that you can't fit into the group. But there does also need to be this sense of belonging and trust and group fit in some ways, in order to get the best out of people.
Yeah, I think there is this ultimately comes down to what we talked about last week is there is a difference between where I navigate socially, right? This goes back to Dunbar's number. We can only establish so many sincere, honest relationships as part of our community. Now, on average, 150, maybe some are less, some can be upwards of 200. Like, that's still a lot of people that you can build your own little personal ecosystem around to your very point. Like, these are the people that get to see most of who I am. But then the economic engine that drives our need for survival needs to be what adjusts and adapts to people so that they can bring the core essence of who they are, right? This is the you're bringing in talent to accomplish things, right? And if a person has a certain skill set that is beneficial to you, like, we should want to harness that skill set and allow them to bring themselves, because if they don't bring the core of who they are and their essence, and I don't give space to that, I don't allow for that to exist, I require you to conform, right? All I'm doing is perpetuating that person's bias of the space that I have, right? If this is one of the, I think, biggest things that I can't wrap my head around having to experience as a trans person. They see so much vilification all the time. Every space they go into, they have to see as a threat to them, even if it's you, which means if you want to make it safe for them, you have to step up. You have to code switch your ass to go way above and beyond what you would normally do to make sure that person feels safe as who they are in the space that you've created. Because we all create our own space and we have people come in and out. But that economic engine has a different thing because it is people's survival.
Right.
And if someone comes into this economic space and has to rip out all of who they are, it's bad for both of you. The cost to them emotionally is wildly high, but the cost to your business is high it's higher from an economic engine. You're not going to get their best.
Right.
They're not going to, they're always going to be walking on eggshells. They're always going to feel fear. And what have we talked about with fear? Fear shuts down logical processing.
Absolutely.
Creating safety, psychological safety in these spaces reduces people's stress and fear responses so that they can actually functionally give you more. This is like, these economic spaces need to allow for the physical, emotional differences in order to foster the cognitive differences.
Well, let's talk about
Insofar
that.
as, yeah.
Yeah, let's shift into that because I think that is the big practical application carrot that's hanging over our heads. There is, how does leadership use curiosity or the idea of meeting people where they're at to create emotional safety, the sense of belonging and trust in teams so that they can get, the most productive. I mean, even the Harvard Business Review notes that code switching, it creates performance anxiety, it decreases your sense of authenticity at work. And if you're not showing up as your authentic self, like, are you doing your best work? So what, in your perspective, and in the more perspective, do you think are some of the applications that people can use to help navigate? Because it's not all good and not all bad, just like biases, right? Code switching has, like you said, it's and I've said, it has its positive parts and it has its negative parts, but it is about making sure that we can have these core authentic folks show up.
Yeah, and that they can there's nothing worse than entering a space each and every day where you feel like you're at risk. Look, we see it with fear of layoffs. I'm going to just, when people fear layoffs, they are less productive. They look for other jobs. They do fewer things, right? And it perpetuates itself. From a leadership, like we've talked about more, meeting people where they are, open to listen more, remove assumptions, embrace curiosity. Like the reason we have that moniker and that simplicity is we've spent weeks and we talk about it and we have all these different applications that we sprinkle in every single one of these episodes because it's so freaking hard. The first thing that we need to do is like remove our judgments, right? Why does more exist? It gives us an opportunity to do the second thing, and that's just engage, right? Like I'll go back to the guy from St. Croix, is where I went on my honeymoon. And he just honestly told me, hey, I don't like that. Oh, okay. Now, this is an innocuous, non-threatening, hey, we're leaving this island and we're never going to see you again engagement. So cool, right? But if there's something that you don't like we talk about self-awareness, emotional awareness, like how are we processing information? We had those 2 conversations with Allison. Like all of this stuff comes to a head here in this moment, right? If someone comes in and they are presenting in a way that you don't like, why don't you like it? Do you know? Can you inspect yourself enough to understand that? And if there is some sort of reason for it, have we created a space where I can go, hey, G, look, can you tell me, or let's use some random example. You and I go to an enterprise customer meeting, right? And that we have no idea what their dress code is, which is another point of clarification when you're meeting with customers, is find out what their dress code is so you can dress to their cultural expectations. Because it's weird showing up in a suit when they're all wearing jeans and hoodies. It's equally weird to show up in jeans and a hoodie when they're all wearing suits, right? So I could ask you, G, you showed up to this meeting wearing a t-shirt. Can you explain to me what that was all about? Because I didn't like it. And then if the space is there, you can be like, well, this is what it was. No one told me. There is an underlying expectation in all of us that everybody knows what we know in some capacity. It's actually a cognitive bias of us. The more we know about something, the more we think other people know about that thing. This happens in our work every time I deliver it. I ask people, how many in this room have heard the term meeting people where they are? I say it constantly, all the time. I've heard it. I've heard it on podcasts. I've heard it in the media. I've heard it from reporters. I've heard all these things. So I'm like, everybody knows this thing. Every time, less than half the room raises their hand.
Really?
Less than half the room raises their hand. Look, 110 million at most watched the Super Bowl. Was it 160 this past year?
Right.
It's still less than half of our US population. But yet everybody watches football. We've, I think, used that example in the past.
Right. Yeah.
So now there's this weird thing that happens when I ask you, gee, why'd you wear a t-shirt? And your sentiment is no one told me. And then what's my response? Well, you should have known better.
You should have known, right?
So now there's that judgment. There's that tension, right? Versus trying to understand, oh, no one's ever told you to wear a suit to a meeting before? What am I doing in my head? You're an idiot. Now I'm going down this whole rabbit hole versus just saying, oh, gee, I'm sorry, man. I should have told you. I just assumed that you knew. We actually wear suits to these meetings. You did a great job in that meeting, by the way. You crushed it. You did all of the things that your talent would preclude rather than being mad that you wore a suit, right? And then holding it over your head and creating a whole stream of judgment. So this is what we do. This is what power dynamics do with subcultures, right? Like you come in with wearing different clothes, which You know, it was less and less a thing than it was maybe in the 80s, 90s, and all the times before where everybody wore a suit all the time or a shirt and tie
Right,
to work,
right,
right? No one does that anymore. Um, but like how we show up, what are the things that I don't like for whatever reason? And have I created a space to seek more understanding of what you're bringing? And then I can level set my expectations. Hey, I just want you to know the thing about my company is we wear suits every day. Are you
right.
comfortable with that? No. Okay, then maybe we're not a fit for each other. Or yes, even though you're not, but you need this job.
So you're willing to
It's,
make the adjustment.
but we're clear. And now you know you're
Right.
making the adjustment with intention, right?
No, and I think that it's exactly the nail on the head, right? Because everyone benefits from knowing how and why we shift. And I think so many people do it so unconsciously
Yeah.
that they're not even thinking about why they're doing it or how they're doing it or how they're showing up for places. And so then it creates these levels where it's harder for other people around them to even notice, right? Because it's you're almost making an unsafe work environment, unsafe place for them without even knowing it, based on not just being open to meeting where they're at, not being curious about how they're showing up to things, or why things are changing. So it's an interesting and nuanced navigation, especially in the workplace, and especially when people kind of just use the bigger terms and bigger, more famous aspects of it, as opposed to addressing kind of how it shows up for everybody in a different
Yeah,
way.
I think you're even taking it a step further, and this is equally as hard. But that's what this is all about, right? Like this is challenging for the hard things because the human dynamic and human connection is fucking hard. And when we accept that it's difficult and that not everybody is this bucket that we've put them in, we can navigate this with bold decision making.
Yeah.
So let's flip it. You're in a space. We've already talked about that. We enter spaces based on our preconceived notions of that space, whether it's the way a picture hangs on the wall, or whether the business admin, the CEO, and CIO all wear suits. And we start making judgments about this space. And so we start changing our behavior based on what we think they need, what we think we need to do to adapt and adjust. Then you add in microaggressions. This is a whole nother level of conversation, right? Relative, like I'm going through a situation right now, navigating some uh, hostile male female dynamics. That's very frustrating to navigate. But so you get these microaggressions, right? You get these things that come out and they fester and they build and they grow and they build and they grow. And then you start changing more and more and more of yourself
Mm-hmm.
to accommodate this perception of the way things are going. And so then the elephant in the room starts to build itself. And then we're all walking around it. We're all dancing. We're going through the legs, avoiding the
Limbo. Yeah.
tail, right?
Yeah.
But no one's saying, why the hell is there an elephant in the room?
Right.
And it perpetuates the unspoken rules. The bold action as someone who's adopting is to ask, is this the expectation? What do you need from me? Clarify this for me. Help me understand where you're coming from on this so that I, to your point, know why maybe it is, or I hear the most common responses, oh, I didn't even recognize I was doing that.
Right. Right.
Right?
I
Like,
had
oh, I
no
didn't know
idea.
that bothered you.
Right.
I didn't know I couldn't do that, Dave. Right? Like,
Excellent callback. There's always a Chappelle Show reference
there's
somewhere.
got to be a Chappelle show reference. If you think just a little hard, you can get a
Yeah, yeah,
Chappelle
yeah.
reference
If
in
you're just open to
everything,
it, it'll
right?
come. It'll
Yeah.
come. No, and that's exactly it. And it, I really do appreciate, like I said, that we always have these conversations that I believe, lead to things that people can practice, they can take away, they can take practicality from these discussions, and try stuff out in the world, and see how navigation goes and how much better we can be about things. And I will say, once you try it, you start getting the hang of it. I think you really do notice how things change.
It becomes much harder to work in big corporations the more you put yourself into the, like, I need to navigate. I got to ask these hard questions. And it's just like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Hard questions? This is what we do.
Yeah, but sometimes forcing the powers that be to think about things that they haven't thought about before is exactly what gets the attention that you want sometimes.
Dude,
So
ain't
it is
that the
part of it.
truth? Ain't that the truth?
All right, so we're going to leave it there. We've had a fantastic 2 weeks discussing code switching, how it shows up, how silent it can be. We want you to share this with a friend who code switches, or drop us your favorite code switching story in the comments. Maybe you have the first time, like when Keith was trying to hug the guy at the resort. He was like, a little too close. A little too close, my friend.
It was so awkward.
I felt that guy
so
still
bad.
tells that story. And then this American tried to hug me.
Hugged me. Oh, and the thing, I think he was a white dude, right? Yeah. Like, that went down there and bought a resort, and yeah.
Oh yeah, he was even more weirded out.
So like it was like, oh, we're good, right? No, yeah. But yeah.
Sorry, bro. More Uncommon Podcast. I'm Gerren Taylor. That's Keith Richardson. We'll have a lot more fun when we see you next week.
That's it. Deuces.